How many times have you walked away from a conversation and thought, "Why did I let that get to me?" How often have you lost sleep over words that were careless, unfair, or simply not worth your attention in the first place? It happens quietly. Someone says something sharp, subtle, or just plain wrong. You feel your chest tighten, your breath shorten, your peace slipping through your fingers like sand. You want to set the record straight. You want to defend yourself, prove them wrong, reclaim your dignity. And before you know it, you're in the middle of a battle you never meant to fight. But what if I told you that your greatest strength lies not in what you say, but in what you choose not to? In a world that never stops shouting, silence has become a kind of rebellion, and ignoring, not out of coldness, not from fear, but from clarity, is a power most people never fully understand. Because ignoring, when done with awareness, is not weakness, it's wisdom. Now I know what you might be thinking, but shouldn't I stand up for myself? If I stay silent, doesn't that mean they've won? These are valid questions, and they come from a world that's taught us that reaction equals strength, that being right is more important than being free. But what if that's a lie we've been told all our lives? You see, in the Buddhist tradition, there is a deep teaching that suffering begins the moment we attach ourselves to the need for recognition, agreement, or victory. And sometimes, the most profound form of courage isn't confrontation, it's restraint. This isn't about running away, it's about knowing when your energy is too sacred to be spent on noise. It's about protecting your peace like you would a flame in the wind, with gentleness, with steadiness, and above all, with wisdom. In today's reflection, we'll go beyond simple tips and surface-level advice. Together, we'll explore the art of the non-response through the lens of Buddhist philosophy. We'll look at the traps of emotional reaction, the illusion of control, and the beautiful strength of letting go. Through stories, teachings, and real-life examples, you'll discover that silence, when chosen, can say more than 1,000 arguments ever could. So if you've ever felt drained by conflict, misunderstood in your silence, or torn between speaking your truth and keeping your peace, this is for you. Let's begin. Part 1. The Trap of Reaction. There's something almost instinctive in us, a tightening of the jaw, a flash of heat in the chest, a quickening of the breath. When someone speaks to us with harshness or condescension, it's as if our body, before our mind can even catch up, prepares for battle. Maybe it's the way we were raised. Maybe it's how society wires us. From a young age, we're taught that not responding is weakness, that if someone insults us, we must stand up, speak back, and prove we're not to be messed with. But if we look closer with the quiet eyes of wisdom, we begin to see a different story unfold. Reaction, especially emotional, immediate reaction, is not strength. It's entrapment. It's the hook in the fish's mouth, and the bait, our ego. There's an old Buddhist saying, "He who angers you conquers you," not because they are stronger or smarter, but because they now control your inner weather. You've handed them the keys to your emotional home, and most of the time, they didn't even ask for it. You gave it away by reacting. Let me tell you about Mr. Howard, a soft-spoken retired librarian I once met at a Buddhist retreat in Oregon. At 73, his voice was as gentle as a breeze in spring, and yet he carried a strength few could match. During a group discussion, a much younger man, sharp-tongued and eager to challenge, began criticizing Howard's view on detachment. The tone was dismissive, even mocking. The air in the room tensed, but Howard didn't flinch. He simply smiled, nodded, and sipped his tea. When asked later why he hadn't responded, he said something I never forgot. "I don't attend every argument I'm invited to. That is the essence of spiritual maturity. To know that not every poke requires a punch, that we don't need to chase every bark with a bite. Reaction is seductive. It makes us feel momentarily alive, justified, victorious. But beneath that surface rush is a much more costly trade: our peace, our energy, our clarity. Buddhism teaches that clinging to identity, to pride, to being right, is a root of suffering, and nothing reveals our clinging more than the need to react. In that split second where someone challenges us, we're not really defending truth, we're defending our image. And that image, no matter how polished, is impermanent, just like the anger of the one who insulted us, just like the very words they used. Think of it like this: if a storm passes over a mountain, the mountain doesn't scream at the clouds, it simply remains. And in time, the storm tires itself out and moves on. We too can become that mountain, but only if we stop letting every gust of wind define us. So the next time someone raises their voice, questions your choices, or tries to pull you into their storm, ask yourself quietly, is this my battle, or just my ego trying to pick up the sword? That pause, that breath, that sacred space between stimulus and response, that is where your power lives. Part 2. The gift you don't have to accept. Have you ever received a gift you didn't ask for? Maybe it was a trinket from a neighbor, or a strange dish from a family gathering, something you held politely in your hands, smiled at, but knew deep down you didn't need or want. Now imagine being handed something far less pleasant: a cutting remark, a judgmental tone, a bitter glare. These too are gifts, but the kind wrapped in resentment, sarcasm, or pain. And here's the liberating truth that Buddhism teaches us: you don't have to accept it. There's a well-known Buddhist parable, one often shared but never outdated. A student asks the Buddha, "Master, what should I do when someone insults me?" The Buddha replies, "If someone offers you a gift, and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The student, puzzled, says, "To the one who offered it." The Buddha nods. So it is with anger, with hatred, with insult. When you do not accept them, they remain with the one who brought them. This teaching isn't just poetic, it's practical, because in everyday life, people will hand us all sorts of emotional packages: a snide comment at the grocery store, a dismissive look at a family dinner, a passive-aggressive text from someone who knows how to push our buttons. And every single time, we are faced with a decision. Do I receive this, or do I let it pass through me, like wind through a reed? Let me share with you the story of Eleanor, a 78-year-old grandmother from Kansas I once spoke with after a Dharma talk. She told me how, after her husband passed, one of her children began criticizing her choices constantly: her house, her diet, even how she grieved. At first she reacted, she cried, argued, lost sleep. But one day she remembered the parable, and she decided, what if I stopped picking up what they keep throwing? Instead of snapping back, she began smiling gently. Instead of defending, she asked questions. And when the attacks came too sharply, she simply said, "I love you, but I will not receive this energy today." The shift wasn't immediate, but it was profound. Over time, the arguments faded, her relationship softened, and more importantly, she reclaimed her peace. We often forget that silence is not surrender, it is selection. When someone tries to hand you their poison, ignoring it is not passive, it's wisdom. It's a quiet declaration: I will not carry what is not mine. In Buddhist psychology, there is the understanding that what arises in others belongs to their own karma, not yours. Their irritation, their bitterness, their need to be right, it is their storm. You are not required to stand in the rain just because they are soaked. The real practice is internal. It's recognizing that someone else's energy doesn't have to become your energy, that your peace is not on the market for other people to bargain with. And once you deeply know that, not just intellectually, but in your bones, you become free in a way few people ever experience. So the next time someone offers you an insult, an unfair judgment, or a heavy emotion wrapped in blame, pause, breathe, and remember, you do not have to accept what does not serve your spirit. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is to simply let it fall to the ground, untouched. Part 3. The art of the non-response. There is a subtle strength that often goes unnoticed in this world. The strength of not reacting, not because you're weak, not because you're afraid, but because you've grown tired of giving your peace away to every storm that passes through. We live in a society that rewards quick comebacks, sharp replies, and the ability to clap back in a flash. But in Buddhist teachings, this reflexive need to respond is seen not as mastery, but as bondage, a chain linking us to the ego's endless hunger for validation. There's a kind of wisdom that only silence can reveal. It's not the silence of avoidance or the silence of fear. It's the silence of someone who knows themselves deeply, who doesn't flinch when provoked, because they've made peace with the parts of themselves that used to react. Let me tell you about Raymond, a retired Vietnam veteran who volunteers at a Buddhist community center in Northern California. When he first came to the center, he had what he called a firecracker mouth. One spark, and the fuse was lit. A rude comment from a stranger, a dismissive tone from a nurse, even a look from his adult son that felt condescending. Any of it could set him off. But during a retreat, a monk shared something that stuck with him. Just because someone knocks on your door doesn't mean you have to answer. That one sentence shifted something in him. He realized that he'd spent most of his life opening the door to conflict, argument, and defense, simply because someone else decided to knock. So he started practicing what he now calls the pause. Every time someone tried to bait him into reaction, he would breathe, a long, deep breath through his nose, and ask himself, is this worth opening the door for? And 9 times out of 10, the answer was no. Over time, people noticed. He wasn't cold, he wasn't passive, but he had a new calmness. His son said, "You don't take the bait anymore, Dad. It's like you've stopped playing a game everyone else is stuck in." And that, dear friend, is the essence of the non-response. You see, people often try to provoke us because they themselves feel powerless. They want to control our emotions, even if they don't realize it. And when we react, especially with anger, defensiveness, or pain, we feed that dynamic. We confirm their power over us. But when you don't respond, something incredible happens. You return the responsibility to them. You show them, and more importantly, you remind yourself that your peace is yours, not theirs to stir, not theirs to steal. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, "He abused me, he struck me, he overcame me, he robbed me." In those who harbor such thoughts, hatred will never cease. But in those who do not harbor such thoughts, hatred will cease. It's not about denial. It's about choosing not to let pain plant roots in your mind. Mastering the art of the non-response doesn't mean you'll never feel hurt or anger again. It means you'll recognize those feelings as visitors, not rulers. You'll learn to nod at them kindly and then let them pass. The next time someone throws words at you like arrows, imagine them flying through the air, and you choosing not to be the target. That space you hold between stimulus and reaction, that is where your freedom lives. And with every moment you choose silence over struggle, you reclaim a little more of your life. Because not every insult deserves a reply, not every challenge requires a counterpunch, and not every moment demands your voice. Some just ask for your stillness and your smile. Part 4. When to stay silent and when to speak. Silence, in the Buddhist tradition, is not just the absence of words, it's the presence of discernment. It is not about holding your tongue out of fear, but knowing when the tongue is no longer the wisest part of you to speak. But let's be honest, silence can be a tricky thing. If you've lived more than 6 decades on this earth, you've probably seen how silence can heal, but also how it can wound. Staying silent during an argument might save a relationship, but staying silent in the face of injustice might enable more harm. So the real question isn't just, should I speak? But what is the deepest reason behind my words or my silence? There's a teaching in Buddhism called right speech, one of the steps on the Noble Eightfold Path. Before we speak, we are asked to consider 3 things. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Only if our words pass through all 3 gates should they leave our lips. Take the story of Anne and her daughter-in-law, 2 women who loved the same man, Anne's son, but clashed at nearly every turn. For years, Anne kept silent, not out of wisdom, but out of resentment. She told herself she was keeping the peace, but inside she was boiling, storing each unspoken hurt like bitter seeds. Eventually, her health began to suffer. Headaches, heart palpitations, sleepless nights. It was during a mindfulness course that Anne realized something profound. Her silence wasn't peaceful, it was repressed pain. So she wrote a letter, not to accuse, not to vent, but to express. She wrote, "I want us to have a more peaceful relationship, and I recognize I've been holding on to things instead of sharing them gently." That letter, guided by truth, necessity and kindness, opened a door that had been locked for over a decade. This is the balance we seek, knowing when our silence is coming from a place of fear or avoidance, and when it's rooted in inner stillness and wisdom, knowing when our words will build bridges and when they'll burn them. Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Speak only when your words are more beautiful than silence." And this isn't a poetic exaggeration, it's a compass, because not all silence is golden, and not all words are weapons. The wisdom lies in knowing which is which. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and another is to say nothing, to offer space instead of sound, reflection instead of reaction. But sometimes silence becomes complicity. When someone is harming others, when something you love is being destroyed, when truth is being buried beneath noise. In those moments, to stay silent is to abandon your own values. And so, we learn to listen not just to the world outside, but to the voice within. Not the voice of pride that says, "Speak now or be weak," but the voice of clarity that says, "This is the moment to plant seeds, not throw stones." To those in the later seasons of life, this discernment becomes even more important. You have seen enough to know that not every argument is worth the breath it costs. But you've also lived long enough to know that some truths must be spoken, softly, steadily, and with compassion, because they are the medicine someone else is quietly dying for. So ask yourself, am I being silent because I'm wise, or because I'm afraid? Am I speaking because I want to connect, or because I want to control? Every word is a tool, every silence is a choice, and with each, you are either building peace or breaking it. Part 5. Deactivating conflict. Before it begins, there's a subtle magic in preventing a fire before the first spark. It's not always dramatic, and no one gives you an award for it, but it's one of the quietest, most profound expressions of inner strength. Conflict doesn't always arrive with shouting or slamming doors. Sometimes it tiptoes in, dressed as a sarcastic remark, a passive-aggressive sigh, or a slightly raised eyebrow at the wrong time. And in that moment, before it fully lands, we are given a choice: ignite it or diffuse it. Buddhism teaches us that anger is not something that happens to us, it is something we participate in. A match cannot light itself. It needs friction, a surface, and fuel. And most conflicts only escalate because both people bring fire to the table, never realizing they could have brought water instead. Let me tell you about Frank, a 72-year-old grandfather who once told me that his greatest accomplishment wasn't his career or his savings. It was that his grandchildren had never seen him lose his temper. Not once. Not even when they broke his antique clock or spilled orange juice on his tax forms. "I learned," he said, "that calming things down before they start is easier than fixing what's been burned." So how did he do it? Frank had mastered a few simple but profound practices, ones anyone can adopt. First, he practiced non-defensive listening. When someone approached him in frustration, instead of preparing his counterattack, he listened like a monk, with his whole face, his whole breath, and no agenda. Most people, he said, aren't looking to win, they're looking to be heard. And when they feel heard, their need to fight often disappears on its own. Second, he used neutral language. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," he'd say, "That's an interesting perspective." Instead of, "You never listen," he'd say, "I feel like we're missing each other right now." This isn't manipulation, it's compassion in language form, because words are like arrows. Once released, they can wound in ways we never intended. Third, Frank never tried to win. He focused on connection over conquest. He'd ask himself, would I rather be right or at peace? And the older he got, the more often he chose peace. Now, you may be thinking, but what if the other person wants a fight? Well, here's the quiet secret. A fire needs oxygen. If you stop feeding it, it flickers out. Not immediately, but surely. In a world constantly simmering with tension, political, familial, personal, deactivating conflict before it begins is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of spiritual bravery. And the best part, it doesn't require a big scene. Often, it looks like taking a breath before you speak, saying, "Let's talk about this," when we're both calm. Choosing to respond with humor or curiosity instead of critique, pausing to see their pain behind their words. Sometimes, deactivating conflict simply means not taking things personally. The Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron says, "Nothing ever goes away until it teaches us what we need to know." And conflict often comes not to destroy us, but to mirror the unrest within us. The things we haven't healed, the buttons we haven't unplugged. So the next time you feel a storm rising, in a conversation, a relationship, or even inside your own heart, ask yourself this simple question: am I about to fan the flame or snuff it with stillness? Because peace isn't just something we find, it's something we protect. And sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is not pick up the sword. Part 6. The freedom of not getting hooked. Imagine a fish swimming through a vast open lake, peaceful, undisturbed. Then suddenly, a shiny hook drops down in front of it. It glimmers, it twitches. It seems personal, and yet the fish swims right by. It's not fooled. It doesn't bite. That fish, it lives longer. Now imagine that fish is you, and every day, life casts 1,000 hooks your way, a critical comment from your brother, a political opinion on the radio that gets your blood boiling, a stranger's rudeness at the pharmacy, or a loved one's dismissive tone at dinner. Each one is bait, and each time you bite, by reacting, by arguing, by spiraling into emotional turmoil, you give up a little of your freedom. But here's the incredible truth: you don't have to bite. In Buddhist psychology, this is known as non-attachment to mental formations. What it means, in everyday language, is this: you are not your thoughts, you are not your reactions, and you are not obligated to entertain every emotional impulse that arises within you. You can observe the bait and choose to swim past it. Let me tell you about Clara, a soft-spoken widowed librarian from Oregon, now 81 years old. Clara used to be what she called emotionally allergic. One wrong word, and she would ruminate for days. She'd play the scene over and over again in her head. What she should have said, how unfair it was, why they treated her that way. Her peace was always on loan to the last person who upset her. Then one day, during a silent retreat, the monk leading the session drew a simple diagram on a whiteboard. A person standing peacefully surrounded by 10 hooks, labeled criticism, gossip, noise, provocation, injustice, ego, and so on. The monk turned and said, "Hooks will always be there. Freedom is not in removing them. It's in not attaching your mouth." That was Clara's turning point. From then on, she began noticing when her buttons were being pushed, and instead of reacting, she smiled. Sometimes she whispered to herself, "Ah, there's the hook." It became her mantra. Over time, she said, it felt like building a fence around her inner garden. The weeds still grew outside, but they never made it in. This, dear listener, is what true freedom feels like. Not needing the world to behave a certain way in order for you to feel okay. Not hinging your joy on someone else's opinion. Not exhausting your spirit, trying to win battles that don't matter. When you don't get hooked, you protect more than just your peace. You protect your power, because the world can say what it wants, throw what it wants, bait you however it pleases. But if you remain steady, unhooked, unattached, you remain in control, not of them, but of you. And that, as the Buddha taught, is the path to liberation. Not through withdrawal, but through wise engagement. Not through hardening the heart, but through softening your reactions. You don't become numb, you become spacious. You don't stop caring, you care more selectively. You don't stop feeling, you feel everything, but you choose what to respond to. So the next time someone tries to pull you into an argument, or life itself offers you the sweet bait of drama, ask yourself this: do I need to bite, or can I let this one swim by? Because every hook you pass without grabbing, every argument you don't enter, every reaction you release before it owns you, is one more step toward a deeper kind of peace. A peace that doesn't come from fixing the world, but from no longer letting it unravel you. Closing thoughts. Silence is not emptiness, it's mastery. So, let's take a breath together, a real one, because after everything we've explored, it's not just about ignoring noise, it's about honoring your peace. Throughout this reflection, we've uncovered something that modern life rarely teaches: that not every comment deserves an answer, that not every argument is yours to fight, that the freedom you crave might just be hidden behind the reaction you no longer give. We've seen how conflict feeds on attention, and how withdrawing that attention is not weakness, but wisdom. We've learned about the art of the non-response, about choosing when to speak, and when to let silence do the talking. We've explored how to deactivate tension before it becomes a war, not by avoiding it, but by disarming it with clarity and calm. And finally, we've touched the depth of what it means to be unhooked, to walk through the world without being dragged down by every emotional current that passes. But none of this is theory. It's practice. It's something you bring to your conversations, your family dinners, your relationships, your inner dialogue. It's something you choose, again and again, with compassion, not just for others but for yourself. Because, at the heart of Buddhist wisdom is this truth. Peace is not the absence of noise. Peace is the ability to remain whole inside the noise. And that ability is something you build, not overnight, but breath by breath. So now I ask you, what are the battles you've been fighting that no longer serve you? What reactions are keeping you tied to old pain? What would happen if you let go of just one? Not by force, but by seeing that it simply no longer deserves your energy. You don't have to shout to be strong. You don't have to win every debate to be wise. And you don't have to react to everything to prove that you're alive. You're already here. You've already made it through so much. This next chapter, it's about ease, discernment, and freedom. The kind that arises not from changing the world, but from mastering your mind. If this message resonated with you, if it gave you even a single moment of stillness or insight, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. You never know who your story might help. And if you'd like more reflections like this, rooted in Buddhist philosophy, spoken straight to the heart, and crafted for the wisdom of your years, then please subscribe to Quiet Wisdom. Let's keep walking this path together. Not in haste, not in reaction, but in awareness, in dignity, and most of all, in peace.